Hey, how you doing, good people? This is the Thump at Recluse Studios, and this is audio production, my entry for the world's biggest Braaam, filmed by my daughter. This is awesome. Here we go. I decided for a challenge on this, I'm not going to do any pitch shifting. I'm not going to use any instruments other than the one I own, this meat bag. Let's get crazy. We're going to wait a second for the loop to go. We're going to throw some more passes down because we're going to stack this stuff up like pancakes. Alright, that's not bad for some louder vocals. Now let's get a really loud. Okay, right there, let's scroll down here. Looks like we have 11 tracks of loud vocals to cut apart and stack. Cool, but we also need some impacts and some sound effects. So let's get some of that stuff thrown in there. I'm gonna set up another track quick, and then we're gonna roll. Camera operator, please keep rolling, thank you. And this is gonna be the impacts layer that we are adding. 1 second while I rename the track, because you have to keep track of what's where. Let's mute the other because nobody wants to hear that nonsense yet. And here we go. Some impacts. Whoop. Operator error helps when we select the proper input. That explains why there was nothing on the waveform. Hey, look at that. Nobody's perfect. Professionals are only professionals because they've made enough mistakes to learn how to fix them real quick. Okay, now I'm seeing level. Let's try the impacts again. Now there's no better impact than a real impact. Here you go. This is why I'm the Thump. All right, that looks like some impacts, and ooh, even peaked on that. Cool. Normally I'd be concerned, but a little distortion on a Braaam ain't a bad thing. So there you go. There's how I produce the sounds. Now we're going to see about mangling them. And welcome to the audio editing portion of my entry into the biggest Braaam. As you heard me mention in the previous section when you watched me creating the audio, I was working with two tracks, one of vocals and one of what I called impacts. Each track was set up to be 10 seconds long with a loop, and it automatically tracks to layers. I ended up doing 11 looped takes, creating 11 layers per channel. So I had 11 vocals and 11 sets of impacts with about 4 or 5 impacts in each set. That's why you saw me looking at the screen. I was timing things visually to make sure I had what I wanted in each layer. After that, I extracted each layer to its own separate track. As you can see here, kept these because why not, muted them because they're inactive. At that point, the first thing I did was pitched every sample to the nearest B using Melodyne. I did not do any octave shifting, I just got it to the nearest B, called it good. The reason I was doing that was just my personal vision for how I wanted to create this sound. Then I found the first zero crossing, trimmed it, pulled it all back, timed aligned. The original takes were all about 10 seconds. So I cut them back to 5 seconds, that way they'd cut off and you could get a nice bloom off the reverb tail when that happened. Each one is faded out slightly differently. I also did a little bit of section removal and then resplicing. It looks like right here what I did was split and then reversed the sample. I didn't bother recording myself doing this because frankly watching somebody edit 22 tracks of audio for no discernible reason at that time is kind of boring. But you do see the results here and you can see the marks of what I did. For example, this one here I inserted a nice long fade in as well as the fade out. This here is where I did a splicing. This crossfade hides the splice beautifully. It's a nice trick used to shorten things up. Then as you see, we got all the way down to here, and then the impacts start taking over. These first 4 impacts are the first ones you saw me doing, the low ones. This here is that kind of high chittering sound I was making. Once again, you can see this lighter section here. I did some splicing and crossfading just for effect. Here are some others. Then these last 2, this right here, let me zoom in on that for y'all, is what ended up happening to the chest impacts. They're very high-pitched in nature, and that's why I was doing it. If I wanted to capture the boom of it, what I probably would have done is grabbed a dynamic mic and held it right up against my rib cage on the other side of the chest to capture the sound of the bone conduction. This time, I didn't do that. So then I cut those up, put them over each other, made it a little bit longer than single impact would be, but it gives it a nice, interesting effect at the beginning. These down here, as you can see, there's more crossfading, are me chopping apart the impacts when I was also making vocal noises. Rest assured, I wasn't making the vocal noises because I was hurt. I was automatically double tracking. I was recording the impact and the sound at the same time without having to deal with 2 mics, 2 sets of signal flow processing, etc., etc. You got to get creative with it every once in a while, and I remember John Lennon doing things like that. You know, of course, the man also wanted to be swung by a rope in a circle around a stationary microphone, so take that for what it's worth. Then, after I completed the editing, as you can see, I don't have any effects inserted on channels at all. I did everything strictly with sends to 4 discrete effects, and we'll explore those in a moment. Did a little bit of volume leveling just for effect. There's actually only a couple channels that I knocked down. You can see right here, channels 17 and 23 were slightly adjusted. Looks like what, -6 on 23 and about -8 on. Usually I tend to work in 3 dB or 1.5 dB increments, so that probably should be closer to 9 just to make my weird brain happy. We'll put it that way. But you know, as you can see, then I also did some creative panning. No automation on the panning, it's set and forget. That was intentional by design. Once again, with the sound design approach I chose to take with this, which I did share with somebody before I did this, so that they know that this is by intention, not me just trying to cover up mistakes or laziness. So anyways, we have those all going down to these effects. And these are just the Waves MondoMod, Waves Abbey Road Chambers Stereo, Waves OVox Stereo, and waves Abbey Road chambers. I'm sorry, did I say chambers twice? This is plates, this is chambers. Let's take a look at them real briefly. I'm not going to have the screens exposed too long. I didn't spend much time dialing it in. I just kind of went for it in the moment, what felt good. But I don't necessarily want to share all my settings with the entire world. I'm sure you guys can understand that. So, this is just kind of demonstrate that yes, these things were actually in play. I'm not just putting together a dummy project. And there you go. You can see there are 0 inserts on the master. And then once I had that done, I rendered the file out, and it came out to about 11 seconds or so. So then I threw it into another instance. As you can see here, it's about 10, it's 11 seconds. Here's what it looks like, the rendered file. I just did a simple normalization on it and rendered it out again as it is here, just going from loop start to loop end to create the 10 seconds. And there you go. That's exactly how I did it. I'd like to thank you all for watching and paying attention, and I would like to thank my camera operator, Malia, for helping me record the first part of this. I couldn't have done it without her assistance. Hope you all have a good day. Remember, take it, break it, make it yours. Have a good one.